Housing markets around the world have been greatly impacted by COVID-19. We've seen unemployment rates soar. We've seen immigration decline. We have similarly seen risk appetite go down. And so all of these things argue for weaker housing markets in the short run, and Canada is no exception in that case. In fact, Canada perhaps even more so affected to the extent that affordability was already stretched to some extent and household debt levels were already quite high. And so you can imagine the housing market proving somewhat weaker in the short term. We've seen estimates of fairly notable home price declines being possible. I tend to think perhaps a 0 to 10% drop is more likely than something more extreme than that. But nevertheless, some effect on housing in the short run. And keeping in mind, Canada is disproportionately reliant on immigration as a driver of population growth. Immigration just isn't happening in any significant way right now. And that's what drives the demand for new houses. Not just immigrants who buy the new houses, but that's why you need an expanding housing stock. And that's what creates housing shortages. So in the short run, we do think there's a significant effect. Obviously, interesting debates to be had. And for the moment, you might imagine that apartments are particularly undesired to the extent that vertical living is a challenge in a time of social distancing. And many apartment dwellers might be university students who are often having virtual classes, or might be international students who aren't coming into the country, or who might be young people working a job and now they can work that job remotely and don't need to be downtown and perhaps have moved back in with their parents. So a variety of ways in which the apartment side gets hit particularly, and more generally, over a multi-year span at a minimum, you might imagine a greater appetite for less dense living as opposed to high density living. But I will say, over the long run, in the end, I'm not sure the housing market will be all that radically different over a multi-year time frame. I suspect Canada will return to quite enthusiastic immigration levels. I have every confidence unemployment rates will work their way back down to much more familiar levels. We're already seeing risk appetite revive. And so in the end, it feels to me as though it should be a fairly similar set of parameters at play here. And I suspect the Canadian housing market will stabilize and even revive over time.